Hello friends, and welcome back to my crafty space. My name is Crystal, and in today's video, I am going to be sharing a story planning video using the Breathe Story Kit from Ali Edwards for Story Kit Crush. This story kit is an old one. I believe this was released in April of 2019, and it's one of the two kits that I am going to work on crushing throughout the course of the month of February. Really excited to dive into this one. So out on my table here, I've got all of the components of the Breathe Story Kit. I also have 3 of these large heart wood veneer pieces. I'm not exactly sure what kit these were offered as an add-on for. I don't believe that they were actually with the Breathe Story Kit, but I felt like they went well enough with what's going on over here that I'm going to try to use these in with my kit this month as well. Now, before I get into the actual story planning, which all I'm going to do here is break everything apart and decide what stories I'm going to tell with all of the product for this month. Before we do that, I do want to show you just quickly my story planner here and how I am using this to help me design and record the stories I want to tell each month. So this one houses all of the kits that I will be crushing that are older kits. So ones that came out in 2019, 2020, and potentially in 2021. And then I have a separate album where I am storing the information for all of the kits that are coming out for the current year, so for 2022. So far I've got the pieces story kit information in here from last month, and then now I have Breathe in here as well. So what I am doing to record my story kit ideas, I first take this project plan page, which this was something I had purchased from Ali Edwards. It came as a pad of papers. The project plan page gives me a place to put all of the different ideas that come to mind as I am watching the story class content, as I am looking through the product and the sentiments that are included in that month's kit. It gives me a place to put the reason why for documenting stories like this, a little bit of to-do list, and then the rest of this is just a brain dump of different story ideas. I like to keep this out nearby as I'm planning my kits, because then I have some pre-thought out ideas for stories to tell, and it's just a matter of finding the product that will help me tell those stories. There will also very likely be some stories that I have not pre-thought out, that as I am doing my planning and trying to figure out stories to tell, different stories will surface for me as I'm going through that process. But I do want you to know that prior to coming over here, I do brain dump different ideas. I also take the handout that comes inside of the Ali Edwards classroom for the story kit. So there is a Breathe classroom. I take the handout and I resize it so that it fits inside of this story planner. And I just have this in here as a reference guide for different ideas, different story thoughts that Ali may have had, so I can reference those as I am working through my story planning myself. And then I follow this up with these story idea worksheets. So these have 2 ideas per sheet, and I just stuck a whole bunch of them in each section of this book. What I am going to do is use my own story planning sheets to sketch out ideas and write out some notes for myself, and then those are going to slip inside of the envelopes with the product for that particular story. Then inside of this book, I will then copy over a little bit of that information, primarily the photos that I'm going to need and the general idea of the story. So when I go over to my computer to find my photos and write my journaling, I can just use this as a quick reference guide instead of having to reopen up all of my envelopes and pull out those original planning sheets, if that makes sense. So this is more of a quick reference for me versus the pockets. It also gives me a way to look back and find out which ones I have completed and which ones I have not. So I actually need to go back and do it for this one. I'm just going to date stamp the day that the layout was completed. And then if there is ever a story that I don't get around to telling, then this gives me this gives me that heads up that, hey, there's this one story that you have planned, but you have not completed it. And it's sitting somewhere in my stash of stories that are ready to go, but not told. So that's just kind of a checks and balances for me, so to say. So just in case you're curious about this story planner, since I have it to the side here, that is what that's all about. I also have a separate story planner where I'm keeping all of my own worksheets, and they are just organized based on the size of the layout. So when I go to sketch out my pages, you'll see this come out, and I'll go through and get those pages there. If this is an or a binder that you have, maybe you have one of these in your stash that's not being used currently, or you just maybe have a smaller album like this, my planning sheets are available as a download for free. I keep the link to them in the description box underneath all of my videos, so you can find that if and when you need them. Okay, so with all of that housekeeping out of the way, let's dive into this month's story kit, or at least the first story kit. I believe this one's going to come out first, and tell some stories. All right, here we go. All right, friends. So I'm going to start out this planning process by working through the 6x4 journaling cards first. What I'm doing as I am leafing through all of these is looking for a couple of different things. One is looking for sentiments that go together, where I could tell a similar story using the combination of cards. And then two is looking for cards that have similar tones to them. So this kit has these gray tones in it. There are green, a little bit of teal, a lot of blue, and pretty much that's it. So yes, green, blue, teal, gray, and then a little bit of this like orangey color as well. So when I am splitting these cards off, I'm trying to keep that in mind of, keeping some of the blue cards together, because then I could make a layout where everything looks really cohesive. Or if I've got a particular sentiment that kind of reflects a sentiment from a different card, then having those two paired together would be a great story for the cohesion of story and the cohesion of the sentiment itself, right? So that's kind of where I start when I am working through a process like this. Another thing I like to do is set aside some of the patterned cards. So I had the card with I think they're called mandalas on them. I had that set to the side for a period of time while I figured out the sentiment-based cards first, and then I could bring back in the patterned ones to figure out where they might fit in terms of the colors and possibly in terms of the design. So let me talk you through a few of the different ideas coming to mind as I'm working through the cards today. First and foremost, there is the card. It was the marketing card in the middle of the screen that says, life is not measured by the number of breaths we take, but by the moments that take our breath away. That one, I really liked the sunset look on it, and I love that sentiment a lot. That made me think of the sunset of the day during my sister's wedding. And this is an album that I am trying to add more stories to with these story kits to get different angles on the stories of her wedding. So I figured that could be a really great sentiment to start talking about, what took my breath away during the wedding event altogether. Then I've got another card that is a little bit hidden there. It says, don't hold your breath. That to me is a sentiment or a statement that is a little bit more on the negative side. Like, what is something that's happening right now in life that just kind of is what it is? Like, we're not going to hold our breath. It's just, that's the way it's going to be. And we're going to carry forth anyway. And for me, what came to mind immediately is this whole, in my daughter's school right now, we have a mask mandate, and the mask mandate was going to drop away. And of course, there is stress and anxiety that surrounds all of that. But at the end of the day, there's really nothing we can do about it, right? I mean, we can make our voices heard and that sort of thing. But there will come a day when masks won't be mandated anymore. So for that one, I thought, why not use that sentiment? Like, I'm not holding my breath, because eventually it's going to fall away, to do a little bit of journaling on that story and just feelings surrounding that whole issue. There is another card there that says, laughing so hard I can hardly breathe. I'm trying to see where I put that at. It might be up in the top. I love that sentiment, and I love the idea of thinking about a time or times that I have laughed either so hard I couldn't breathe, or just laughed really hard in general. Like, it doesn't have to be a story about laughing so hard you couldn't breathe in order to use that sentiment. For me, what I'm thinking is compiling some different things that my kids have said lately and doing some kind of layout about that. Maybe I'll put it inside of my daughter's album. Maybe it'll go in my son's album. Maybe it'll be a combination of the both of them. I'm not totally sure at this point. Then I've got another one that says, when you wake up in the morning, something like realize how wonderful it is to be alive, or something along those lines. And one of the practices that my husband and I are currently working on in our house is trying to get up earlier in the morning, and thus also trying to go to bed earlier in the evening, which is proving to be much more difficult than, well, it's just difficult, right, to get up in the morning. So, or to go to bed at night. The getting up in the morning is only hard when you don't have adequate sleep. So I wanted to talk about this new habit of getting up early and what that's like to start the day in this quiet sort of mind frame. I'm thinking what I might do for that one is one of the days when I do get up to just kind of take some pictures of the morning to get a feel for what the morning looks like and feels like. And then to maybe sit down and do some journaling in the morning time for things maybe that I'm grateful for, or just reflecting on what a difference it makes to wake up in the morning, something along those lines. When I was working with the hearts, those wood veneer hearts, something that came to mind for me was to potentially use them as photo frames. So to take a photo and cut it into the shape of the heart and add it on top of the heart, and then add that on top of a photo or on top of pattern paper or something of that nature. And I'll get more into that later. But I decided what I would do is pair that with two cards, one that says gasp, and then one that says do more of what takes your breath away. And it has this real outdoorsy look with the pine trees and that sort of thing. That made me think of outdoor adventures and maybe some hikes or something that when we participated in it, when I did it, that maybe it took my breath away, or maybe it just was something that felt, I don't know, really like expansive, right? Because to me, viewing something that takes your breath away, or having a moment where you are gasping at the world around you, it just feels expansive. So that's what I want to go for with a story like that. Now that I've got general piles figured out of stories I want to tell, the next thing I'm going to do is bring over my planning pages, this little book filled with all my planning pages, and designate which stories are going to be told in which sizes. For that, I love to play in different sizes. I feel like it helps me to crush these kits because it keeps the storytelling fresh by putting them into different albums and having different subjects of my stories themselves. So this is the one that I was talking about earlier, where I want to do some kind of photo in the morning and do some journaling about those morning hours, or just gratitudes for getting up early, that sort of thing. So what I'm thinking is layering a photo with the journaling card there, the one that's got the sentiment on it, and then adding a chipboard phrase on top that says something along the lines of, I meet myself in stillness and we breathe. And something about that also made me think about the mornings and how when I get up before the family, that there's this time, this moment of stillness and this ability to just breathe before the chaos of the day begins. It just feels like peaceful. You know, it feels peaceful to me. And I want to reflect on that a little bit. One of the things I want to do with this journaling card and the way that I want to include it in this story is to take the patterns, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong. I believe they're called mandalas. That could be wrong. But to take those, they're kind of like these floral looking elements. And the ones that are interacting with the edge of the journaling card, I want to fussy cut those out and then have them interact with the left side of my journaling and almost act like bullet points, or I guess another word for that could just be, or another phrase for that could be like text separators. Like they help to designate the different bodies of text that include different thought processes, if that makes sense. So I want to have, a couple of different paragraphs of journaling and then have those differentiated by the patterns at the beginning of the journaling. So I'm excited to see how that one comes together. This next one is the story about laughing so hard I can hardly breathe. And as I was journaling this out, or sketching this out, I decided that this would go into my daughter's story album. I have a story album for both my daughter and my son, and they are both the 6x8 size. So I thought what I could do is grab a photo of my daughter and then use the label stickers that you see there. Those are from the December Daily collection from this past year, to add the things that she has recently said inside of the labels and have those go down, like cascading down the side of a full page photo. I can then layer the cork hearts with that and then trim out and add the sentiment, laughing so hard I can hardly breathe, into the bottom corner of the photo as well. So that one I'm really looking forward to. I love a nice, light, and fun story like that. This next one is inspired by this take a deep breath. For this one, I want to, I'm thinking I might journal something in my One Little Word album potentially, or this may go inside of just another 6x8 album. For this one, I want to talk about the practice of inhaling the good and exhaling the bad. So I am thinking I will take a photo or two photos of myself, and this is something I do all the time. When I have a particular story I want to tell, I have no problem going and taking the photos that will help me to tell that story. So like, I don't have a photo of myself breathing in or a photo of myself breathing out. So I'm just going to go take those. And I'm thinking I will layer them one on top of the other and then put the sentiment, take a deep breath in between, with the inhale and the exhale on the top and the bottom, and then talk about the things or the places where I am seeking calm in my life right now. Moving on, I've got another story for a child story album. So this one will go into my son's album. We have been working really hard with him lately on calming techniques, and specifically on using breathing as a calming technique. So when he is throwing a tantrum, his toddler 3-year-old tantrums, what we will do is sit down with him and look at each other in the eyes and then practice deep breaths in and then blowing the whole breath out together. And so I thought that would be a really great story to tell, and something that, if my kids were to look back on these albums in the future, something that they could look at as, that we all struggled through different parts of parenting, and that this is just, the 3-year-old age is a tough age. And how did we cope through that together? Like, how did we help him really learn to deal with disappointment and to calm himself down with breathing? So I think that will be a great story to have as part of his story album. This next one is the gasp, or, do more of what takes your breath away. For this one, I decided to go with a 12x12 size, and I'm just trying to figure out, where can I place these hearts in the 12x12 size so that it makes some sort of sense? At this point, I was thinking maybe what I'll do is create a full-on grid and have, the gasp up in the upper left-hand corner and the tree looking card in the bottom right hand corner and then have the hearts go on a diagonal, or I don't know. I was really struggling with this for a little bit until I placed the hearts like this. And you'll see I will second guess myself and then decide, no, this is exactly what I want to do. So what I'm going to end up designing here is a 12 by 12 where the first 3 by 12, so the first 3 inches by 12 inches is going to be the home for the journaling cards and my journaling. So I'm going to cut down the gasp card to a 3 by 3 size. And then I'm going to leave the other one that says do more of what takes your breath away. I'm going to leave that as a 3 by 4 at the bottom. So that's going to give me roughly, I want to say like, is it 5 inches? Because if it's 4, 6, 7, 8, about 4 inches. It gives me about 4 inches in between the 2 cards to add my journaling. And I'll just print that directly onto some plain white canvas and probably textured cardstock. So then on the remaining part of this 12 by 12, I want to print a giant photo. So a 9 by 12 photo. And then use the hearts as frames for more photos, cut out 3 more photos in the shapes of the heart, but maybe slightly less so that you can see just a peek of the wood veneer behind that, and then add that on top of the photo. So it'll be like a big old photo as the foundation with 3 more photos layered on top of that. And I'm thinking I'll go in and look at a couple of different travels that we've done through the years. I have a hike that we did when we went to Saugatuck last summer. We've got, when I was a teenager, we went to Yellowstone National Park, so I can see if I've got any pictures that would scale well and print at that 9 by 12 size without being blurry. We've also been to Vancouver in the last, 10 years, so that could be a potential trip to look at. Just trying to think of these times where we've been outdoors and, how I can feature those pictures in a large format like that. This one is moving back to the wedding album. So I am creating a wedding album that I will give to my sister when it's complete, and it is in a 10 by 8 album. So for this one, I am going to use a full page photo on one side, just trying to figure out how I can include that chipboard piece in there too. It says, this totally took my breath away. And then on the opposite side, I'm thinking I'll just use a 6 by 8 page protector and put the card there in the top. So we've got, this area that's just the sentiment. It's just decoration. The photo will be the main feature of this entire layout. And then I'm considering using these last 2 of the mandalas that were in that original 4x6 card. I cut them out of the middle, figuring I could use them somewhere else. So I think I'll use one on the photo and then use the other one as a top piece for a journaling card. And then I can add journaling for that story into the 10 by 8 album. This one here is inspired by a journaling card that says, "You are enough, you are so enough, you have no idea how enough you really are," or something like that. This one, I want to do a story just titled "You Are Enough" and use this as an opportunity to document myself a little bit. So I will get a selfie picture. I'm going to create this on a 9 by 12 canvas. So I'll print my picture at 6 by 12 and then use the 3 by 12 section to add in my journaling. I love using the 1-inch circle chipboard stickers as bullet points. So that's what I'll do. I have 5 of them, and then I'll add 5 little bodies of text where I can tell myself areas of my life that maybe I'm feeling a little down on myself about, and give myself a pep talk and tell myself that you are totally enough. Okay, so this one here was one of the first ideas that popped into my head with this kit, Breathe. For this story, I actually used to be a lifeguard instructor back in the day and had an experience where I had to administer CPR to a young man. And I wanted to use this story kit to tell that story. And it's a traumatic story. And One that I have not documented yet. I've documented some of my experiences with being a lifeguard and being in charge of lifeguards and all of that kind of stuff, but I haven't actually documented, when, the one moment in time where everything that we had been practicing for years needed to come into play, and the type of trauma that comes from that. So I'm going to tell that story. I still have my CPR mask, so I'm thinking I'll grab that out, take some pictures, and use some of this product to tell that story. This one here is going to be the Don't Hold Your Breath, which we talked about a little bit earlier, and talking about masking mandates and just feelings around how everything keeps changing and changing back and all of that. Thinking I'll use my Breathe story stamp to help me create some separated journaling points in a traveler's notebook size. This one is the last one. For this one, I'm going to do a 3x8 and just talk about being outside and what it's like to get a breath of fresh air, and how important that is for our own self, mental health type of stuff. So just finding ways to use some of the last little bits and pieces here. I'm thinking I'll just take a picture outside and then layer up a bunch of the embellishments and potentially that wreath up there as well on top of a photo. And then we will get this all packaged up, and I believe that is the last one. So I'll bring all of the stories back over here into the middle. Oh, before I do that, I'm going to show you everything I'm setting aside for a week of Project Life. So just a couple of cards, a couple of the embellishments, just enough for me to get about one spread done. And then we'll bring everything back over. I'll slow you guys back down, and we will close out of this video for today. All right, friends, that completes my story planning for today. So out of this one story kit, I was able to pull out 10 different stories to tell, in addition to a week of Project Life. Really looking forward to diving into all of these stories this month and sharing the process of putting those together with you. All right, friends, well, I hope that you enjoyed seeing all of these ideas come together. If you did, I would love a thumbs up on this video down below. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you can see all of my future crafty videos as well. I'm going to be back with some videos where I will be putting together these layouts, and you will also see some videos for a more current story kit this month as well. So be sure to keep your eyes out for those. Until then, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye, friends.